Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hawks-centric podcast, hosted by yours truly, David Lee, aka D Lee for three. Um, Last night's game was crazy. I was in the building and I did not really realize how many points Paul George had. Quite honestly, I didn't even realize how many Dyson had. It was just one of those things where they were both getting it in the flow in the offense. And until Paul George started really cooking at the end of the game, I looked up and he had 35 on 21 shots. I was like, oh, he's 7 for 10 from three. Yeah, rough night from Jalen shooting, 5 of 17. I saw my guy Brad said that I think between Nikhil, Jalen, and Okongwu, they were like 2 for 17 from 2-point range. Nikhil was 3 for 18. Jalen 5 for 17. Okongwu was 6 for 17, but he went 5 of 10 from three. Yes, that means Okongwu went 1 for 7 on 2-pointers. And Philly actually, and I didn't know this either. I saw Nikias Duncan say this. Philly is second in like defensive rating since like over the last 2 weeks, something like that. And I wasn't expecting the Hawks to struggle offensively against this team. I expected the Hawks to get out in transition. I also did not expect the Hawks to absolutely feast on the offensive glass. They had 18 offensive rebounds. By my logging, I think I also had that as well. What's really interesting, last night's game was the Hawks one of their lowest points per possession off of makes. This is all the stuff that I hand track. They were scoring at about 1.09 points per possession in the half court when it was organized. That is relatively close to where they usually are on average on sort of like organized offensive possessions through the season. To what I have tracked so far, they had a 1.02. They were actually pretty decent in freelance possessions, 0.95. The sideline out of bounds, the baseline out of bounds stuff was pretty good as well. They didn't run a ton of pick and roll against Philly either. Just 11% of their possessions on were out of pick and roll. And overall, I like the Hawks offense outside of the guys not making shots. Dyson Daniels was fantastic. He had 27. He finished with 27 and 10, 4 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks. I want to point out the 5 offensive rebounds, which were huge. Jalen had 4. Okongwu had 3. Nikhil had 2. And I, of course, have a ton of film to talk through from this game. I finished logging this one. Hopefully, the tracker will be done by this week. I'm definitely trying. I'm getting faster and faster with every game I do. So let's go ahead and hop right into the film, man. I want to start with this first play that the Hawks, one of the first plays the Hawks ran. So the Q had like an ankle thing, and then I believe he caught a cramp, and the Hawks called like an early timeout. So this was after that timeout. You're gonna have the Keel come and set like he's signal for a back screen if you see it here, right? You see him throw his hand up. Oh, sorry, it's a little bit further back. Watch him throw his thumb. So he's saying, "Hey, Onyeka, come off the screen. I'll set it right here, and you can come right behind." They're gonna actually slip that, and he's gonna come across and run off that screen from Onyeka Okongwu, spot up, hit that 3, knock it down. Nikhil's transition numbers, like in terms of actual scoring efficiency, like they're not as crazy as I thought they were based on what I've seen from him this year. In terms of his actual shot making, like he's constantly switching hands in transition. He's kissing it off the glass, and so I kind of expected him to be like scoring like awesome on those types of possessions, but that just really hasn't been like where he's like he hasn't actually been scoring that crazily in transition this year, which is curious. I'm not exactly sure how we get to that discrepancy because like again, here's a great example, but here's semi transition after a make. He's gonna get to a hesitation, crossover dribble, and that's an exceedingly tough shot. With touch, he kisses it right over Don Barlow's hand. And I think that Nikhil in general, he's obviously been huge. And this is another thing too. Like this might sound crazy for someone who watches so much Hawks basketball. I gotta be honest, man. I had no idea that he was averaging 20 points per game. Because I guess I don't take the box scores enough. Um, Now, what I like for this possession from Jalen, he had back-to-back rim misses on the possession before this. Looking at where the shot clock is, he knows he can overplay this. VJ throws a duck, and then Jalen's either take it out and gets to the free throw line, which is nice. Now, the Hawks had 3 consecutive possessions where they stole the ball. So here you see how quickly they shrink the floor against Quin and Grimes when he tries to reverse pivot. Onyeka's active in the passing lanes, and then the Hawks are out and running. And again, VJ has to foul. He's the last man on the break. And you can kind of see just I mean, of course, between PG and Embiid, like you're not gonna have everyone back, but I thought they were really I guess the word would be like proactive doubling Embiid. Like before he even really got a chance to face up, you see that Dyson comes flying at him, hands in the passing lane. You see that you have Jalen Johnson splitting two or going to get Quin Grimes, who's the most immediate skip pass, and Nikhil splitting two. Now, because you have Don Barlow sort of diving, he's able to stick there, and Dyson's able to get the tip. Hawks are off and running again. And I believe that this one ended up in a miss. I want to say, yeah. But I thought that Dyson's handle looked really clean here, really crisp. Not an easy move to do. Pretty hard to get between two defenders, and I really like that. Mixed bag from Jalen defensively, but I think that generally speaking, I liked what. Mixed bag from Jalen defensively on the whole year. This particular game, I thought he was actually pretty good. You can see him communicating this particular off-ball action here. You can see his mouth moving. He's talking. He's talking. He's going to chase Paul George with vigor. Watch how he gets over that screen, beats Paul George to the spot. Love seeing that because it denies that initial action, and he's so close to taking that away from PG. And but then they still end up getting this stop. You're going to see everyone's moving, rotating. Then everyone rallies to the glass, and they're able to keep Embiid from getting to that immediate tip. He's got to go to the free throw line. Now, this is one of their patented baseline out of bounds sets. This is flat triangle veer. So you've got, unfortunately, they cut it off a little bit right before, but typically you would have Veet set this screen here for Muhammad Gay. Gay would drive, and then Veet Krejci would come off this screen from Jalen Johnson. So he's supposed to curl here off this screen from Jalen. So here's the veer. Here's the sort of the pin-in screen. Both guys are going to fly to Veet because they're worried about that immediate shot. McCain is trailing. And then now that means Jalen Johnson can slip because now you've got the big switching onto Veet. And I think Jalen was kicking himself for missing this. And Veet doesn't have his lift. He's not as imposing at the rim, but it's still a 7'2". I guess he is. Or maybe he's like 7'1". Either way, that's a big guy. So it's still tough to finish around him, but you can see Jalen was like, I should have got that. He definitely should have. Here's another example of the Hawks doubling very strongly. So this is where I think Luke Kennard can make himself passable on the defensive end, being proactive, keeping your hands high. You see he uses his foot as well to deter that bounce pass. Embiid pumps. Hawks are doing a great job eating up this space. So, you might have 4 Philly players, right? You're basically playing 4-on-3. But because of the way that Kennard is denying this ball, this pass is really tough for Embiid to make. So he's going to try to be patient. He's going to try to kick it to Don Barlow. Then you see Luke Kennard's able to get back to Jared McCain. Now the possession is essentially dead. And that's from a really smart double. Here, as soon as you'll notice the timing on Dyson's double, right? That hang dribble is going to take a long time to come back to the ground. At 7-2, so Dyson's able to muck it up, create a deflection. I think the Hawks end up getting this back where he misses it. Yep, and there we go. This is going to be a look at some of the Hawks like early offense, right? So they like to run this thing I'm calling flip, where basically usually it'll be Dyson. Dyson will bring the ball up and then flip it to Jalen, who's trailing. Sometimes it could be Nikhil. It could be a trailing big for pick and pop 3. But here, that flip is going to confuse Philly. So Quin Grimes has to deal with that initial bump from Veet Krejci. Now Don Barlow is like, oh, dang, do I switch? They don't know what to do. And Dyson slips. And honestly, should have got an N1 here because Embiid clobbered him. We're going to look at pistol here. So this could be considered delay as well, but you've got a big operating at the top of the key as a hub. When he gets denied or when Luke doesn't come up for the handoff, you're going to get that initial denial when he picks the ball up. Justin Edwards does a good job cutting that off. But then Veet's going to keep cutting off his hip. That's pistol. And then Onyeka is going to be able to pump fake, get Andre in the air, and throw a really nice lead bounce pass out of the reach of both Andre Drummond and Justin Edwards and lead Veet Krejci to the rim. You got to be able to have read and react offense. And I think that's where the Hawks are. They're very comfortable in the type of offense that they're running at this point. Now, I selected this clip because I do want to point out sometimes the trade-off of having Zach leak out. So Zach is at this point pretty much wired to try and get up the floor as fast as possible. I talked about this in previous episodes. And when that rebound isn't secured, it leaves the Hawks shorthanded or at least at a disadvantage matchup-wise because of the size. So when PG flashes to the rim, it's Keaton Wallace who's there. Also mentioning the Keaton Wallace stuff. So I'm not going to take full credit for this, but I do think it's somewhat interesting. Right now, okay, the Hawks have been phasing out the Keaton Kennard Krejci lineup last couple of games. They've been mixing in Asa Newell with some of those guys, not playing those three guys together as much, but they did all play together in the past couple games. Now, the minutes have dwindled, but we have seen a Keaton, Krejci, Kennard lineup in every game since at least November 18th, which was when Vit Krejci started. So, you didn't have that same overlap. But generally speaking, since Trae Young has been out, if all three of those guys were healthy, there were stints throughout the game where all three of them would be on the floor. Now, I think it's pretty foolish to say that, hey, games are won or lost by one lineup. And I don't think that the Hawks are the only team with a bench lineup that gets smacked. In the screenshot that I posted, it's a good number of teams. It's guys like, it's not teams you want to be around, but of course New Orleans has the worst lineup in the league. Then Charlotte, Sacramento, Brooklyn, Sacramento again, and Cleveland. So again, the Hawks aren't the only team with a bad lineup, but this was the Hawks' fourth most played lineup. They were getting beat by 23 points per 100 possessions. And what I think was really telling about this is that this lineup was still shooting really effectively from the field. They were at a 58.6 effective field goal percentage. That's the 65th percentile. So if your offense is in the 5th percentile and you're still shooting the ball well, it tells me you don't do anything else well. And that's because they turned the ball over on 18% of their possessions, and they weren't getting on the offensive glass at all. 14th percentile, 14% offensive rebounding percentage, 1st percentile. So if you turn the ball over, you're not getting extra possessions on the glass, and your offense stinks, and the defense stinks too, because they're also not getting to the free throw line. They were in the 6th percentile in free throw rate. And defensively, they're giving up a crazy high shot quality, and they're allowing the teams to get offensive rebounds. So it's a win. It's a lose-lose-lose. You're not getting extra possessions. You're giving extra possessions to the defense. You're not getting to the free throw line, and you're turning the ball over. That lineup, unfortunately, was necessary for what Quin Snyder wants to do, which is at this point with Trae Young off the floor as he's recovering, and Kristaps now out for the next 2 weeks. He wants to keep the starters together as much as possible because he does not trust the bench, and he doesn't trust the starters to be staggered with the bench. But when this lineup is this bad, that necessitates experimentation, and we're seeing that gradually, right? I like seeing Asa Newell instead of Keaton Wallace with Nikhil running that unit. Nikhil didn't have the best night. Those lineups probably would have been even better if he did have a good night, but that's just a good example of what you've got to do. You've got to be creative. You can't just keep running that same lineup out, even if it is a small portion of their overall actual 48 minutes. I think most of the time that would still be a 10-minute, 7-minute lineup, but they're getting blasted. And it's pretty clear that they're going to continue to get blasted. So I expect this lineup to continue to dwindle in minutes. I expect it to not make an appearance when Trae Young comes back. I tried to ask Quin Snyder, not directly about the lineup, but more so about his proclivity to play the starters a bit more this season. And he didn't dodge the question per se. He just didn't necessarily answer it. And I don't think it's because he didn't know how to answer it or he didn't want to. I just think that to him, it's very matchup based, and he could be not saying the what's the saying, the quiet part out loud. He could be saying the loud part quietly, where it's I think it's more roster determined as opposed to this is what he wants to do, because historically he's never really played the starters this much. Nonetheless, let's get back to the film. I thought this was a really good possession where the Hawks pass off assignments. So you've got this initial off-ball screen that's going to get PG going downhill. Luke Kennard is going to split the difference. When PG catches that initial entry pass, Kyle Lowry throws a lob. And so that allows Dyson Daniels to come down and bump Luke Kennard off. But you'll also notice that Asa Newell was also in position to pick up this post-up. So if Dyson doesn't do this, potentially you could have had Asa Newell there, which again is a positive of having him on the floor. And then Luke Kennard's able to bump off and get to Jabari Walker. And unfortunately, Jalen just isn't able to contain VJ here in open space. You can notice his feet just aren't active. He's flat-footed, and VJ's just a little bit too quick for him. Now, I want to point out this possession as well, because this is what I'm getting to with the offensive rebounding stuff, and why the Hawks have been so bad on the defensive rebounding glass. Jalen Johnson's really good when he can high point it. But this is also just the effect of, I got to shout out Kyle Lowry here. Even exchanging or going baseline can do so much for when you're trying to create possessions or just attack a defense. Because Kyle Lowry sags down here and really exchanges with Jabari Walker. When Jabari Walker crashes, the closest person to Jalen at first is Kyle Lowry. So he doesn't get a body immediately on Jabari Walker. It's left to Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard just gets completely blown up. And then Jabari Walker is then able to walk Jalen Johnson down the rim. down under the rim. So like, there's no initial contact from Jalen. He gets walked down, and then of course, Jabari Walker gets the rebound, and now they're at the free throw line. So just an example where I think the Hawks continue to get better, particularly Jalen Johnson. This is a kind of a relatively new play in their book. I talked about this in the previous episode, I think. It's kind of like Spain pick and roll, except they usually don't set the screen, and they usually use like guards to do this. It's really just to try to get a mismatch for Jalen going downhill. And so they set that back screen. Dyson's going to ghost and leak out of that initial screen. And this ends up being a driving kick from Asa Newell. And this is a really high-level pass from him to bounce that under Andre Drummond, who isn't even really considering that a pass could be thrown there. Like, you see his hands aren't active. His hands are by his side. And Dyson smartly reverses it to get around Andre Drummond. Andre also had a bunch of blocked threes, man. I don't know what was up with him. What's this one? Oh, yeah. I think the trailing three, like, I want to say this is Onyeka's second or third game this season with 10 3-point attempts, which is insane. 10 3-point attempts from a guy who didn't attempt any his first 2 or 3 seasons. That's kind of unprecedented. I really need to check the historical precedents, but I continue to be more and more impressed with Onyeka's offensive development, and that's something there are a couple clips in here that I definitely want to talk about with him because he did some things that he hasn't really done this season in this game. So here's that same rip screen, right? You're going to see Nikhil coming to set that rip screen for the inbounder, who's Jalen Johnson, but he's going to veer it and come around for this handoff. So he's not going to actually make contact with Don Barlow. And that puts a bit of a hesitation in the VJ because he's like, oh, do I need to switch that? And so when he gets into this handoff, now VJ is even further behind the play. Embiid just doesn't have any hope. And then Nikhil gets it to Onyeka, who misses that initial layup. This is a really tough layup from a center. Like, that's crazy body control for someone that big. And then he's also immediately off the ground, beats everyone to that tip. His only 2-pointer from that game. Dyson also completely walked down Quin Grimes here. I mean, that's your point guard at this point. Ball is kept in play by Nikhil. High-level play. The most valuable plays in basketball come after a turnover or an at-the-rim block. Usually generates a 4-on-5 situation. Now the Phillies defense is able to get back. They're going to run sort of like a pinch alignment. You're going to see Quinn Snyder motions for people to stay spaced. He's saying space. As soon as Dom stunts, that's feet crazy, man. You can't leave him open. And that's string music, wide open 3. Another good guy who's really blossomed offensively. Now, this is going to get into a pretty standard set for the Hawks, which is corner with the split cut. So corner is when you enter the ball around the wing area. Now, split cut is when you have the 2 players at the top of the key. This is technically like corner high. So you're going to have this player set this screen for Nikhil to go back door. He could also flare it out this way. There's a lot of different options. He could come back this way and reject it, get to a handoff. What's going to happen here? Nikhil's going to clear through, and then Dyson's going to set a screen. And so now you've got inverted pick and roll with the guard screening, and now you've got Onyeka getting downhill. This is really effective because, of course, Embiid isn't really mobile, and he can't get around screens much anymore. Dyson smartly locks his arm, and then now Onyeka can just blow through Paul George and gets to the free throw line. This is, I want to say, the first pick and roll that I've logged for Onyeka this season. And there's another one that he ran this game, and I think it's definitely situational. You want to use it against other bigs 100%. And again, I'll show why. But it's really, really impressive to have a guy who can pass like this, can get up 10 threes a game, can protect the rim because he had 3 blocks, and he's driving the ball. It's almost like all of us who thought that Onyeka should start, we're kind of right, you know. This play isn't Hawks related. I just want to talk about VJ Edgecombe because I thought he was pretty impressive in this game. Even in Embiid's limited state, like, I don't even know if this plays. Actually, this play isn't relevant to what I was going to say. But, man, that's crazy standstill creation from Quentin Grimes. And when he gets downhill, of course, Dyson has to help. And Grimes doesn't really throw that pass effectively to allow VJ to attack directly off the catch. Like, if he threw that into VJ's chest, he's dunking this. But the presence of mind to catch on 1 foot, pump fake, immediately bring it back down, pound dribble, go out with 2, and finish with the right hand. I really do enjoy watching VJ play. Here's another good defensive sequence from Jalen Johnson, he's on the back line here. Quin and Grimes is going to run this two-man game with Joel Embiid. Really good defensive pressure from Zach here to blow up that initial handoff. He gets his hand in there, knocks it loose. He's playing tough, cuts off that bump, cuts off that spin. Now Embiid is going to try to get to work against Mohamed Gay. You see the early double from Dyson. Jalen falls asleep a little bit, lets Don Barlow get behind him, and he's going to get across the charge circle and just high point that ball. Shot clock violation. Ideally he doesn't lose him in the first place, but nice to see that defensive effort from Jalen. Here's another. Oh, I guess this is no, it's still the same play. Hawks run wide curl a lot to start off their offense. It's a screen here to allow a player to come towards the ball. If this is like Veet or someone like that, or Luke, they might shoot it. Usually it's to try to flow into another action or get downhill. Now, Don Barlow's able to blow it up, so they reject it. Now Veet's going to come in. They're going to do a quick little two-man game. Dyson skip, dribble, hang. Then he's going to attack with that left hand. As soon as he gets VJ trying to cut him off to the right, he's going to spin back and then get to his spot, elevate. Dyson was super controlled, very confident. Good to see that. Here's another great double from the Hawks against Embiid in the corner. When that ball gets skipped, watch how Zach uses his length. Now the Hawks are out and running. I don't recall how this one ended. Oh, yeah. I don't know, man. Dyson's floater was hitting this game. It's kind of why I don't want to quit him potentially, at least becoming not a three-point shooter, but at least someone who's consistent at the free throw line, because his touch is just so good around the basket. And usually guys who are that good touch-wise, his floater volume is crazy. His short mid-range volume is crazy. And for him to be this bad from the free throw line, I don't know. I really do feel like a lot of it is confidence related. So they're going to have Veet curl off the screen from JJ. Now Dyson's going to get action with Jalen Johnson. He's going to throw it and then come get the handoff, and he's going to attack Justin Edwards, and he just blows right past him. I don't know why I thought Justin Edwards was good at basketball. This might be the worst player in any rotation on some semi-serious team. He's able to get by him. Left hand scoop high off the glass before the shot block can get to it. Now, as good as Dyson is and was driving the ball, there are still complications with him on the floor. And this is exactly a great example of what I'm talking about. Jalen wants to attack early here. Now, notice where the help comes from. It's Don Barlow. Who's Don Barlow guarding? Dyson Daniels. He completely cuts off the left side of the floor. And Jalen still wants to get to this floater. Probably not advisable. And I wish that there was a way for everyone to attack at the optimal moment, right? Or to make these driving lanes easier. If this is Luke Kennard or Veet, this is probably a layup or a foul. But because it's Dyson and Don Barlow can sync with no problem, and there's no exchange here from Luke Kennard, and Jalen's trying to attack the left side of the floor as opposed to the right because he wants to get away from Andre Drummond. If the floor bounces a little bit different, maybe this looks different. But when you attack early, you don't get to orchestrate everything, right? And that's kind of the trade-off between trying to play early up-tempo offense and organized offense where you can place guys in optimal positions. And I don't know. This one in particular, though, I feel like this is a good example of Andre Drummond kind of pushed Asa hard there. So the Sixers did break out of zone at points, and typically most NBA teams will just try to flash someone in the middle to break out of it. So you're going to see Asa come up and run this handoff with Krejci, and then creates this open three. I say this one too to talk about Justin Edwards. I could not believe that this is what happened after that steal. Bad looks. But I want to talk about Onyeka's driving too. This is another good example. So they're going to run this horns out with a wedge screen for Onyeka. Wedge screen from, I think this is Veet. And they're going to have a zipper screen for Onyeka to lift. Now, he hit a three out of this. I think I have that clip. Not on this play. But you see he's going to drive here and create that open three for Asa Newell. So, again, this is all the different things you can do with the center. Because typically, when you see a team run a wedge screen, you're trying to get a mismatch in the post. And so even though Onyeka rejects that, he doesn't go off of that, no one wants to switch this. Justin Edwards doesn't want to deal with Onyeka in the post. you see that separation from Andre Drummond trying to be mindful of that wedge screen is what allows Onyeka to get this much distance from him on the catch. And now he's driving against VJ Edgecombe instead of Andre Drummond, which then holds Jabari Walker a beat later, a beat longer, and then he's able to get it to Asa Newell in the corner for 3. Again, poor shooting night from the Keel, but this pass, this is a no-look bullet that gets Asa Newell wide open off that early screen, early spread pick and roll slip. As good as Dyson was, there was a particular moments where I felt like he kind of got in over his head. Here, he kind of just kept dribbling. Just reset Onyeka here, in my opinion, right? The Hawks do this all the time. It's easy to just enter the ball to him. You could get to a split cut here, which if he creates you can chase and go off his hip for that same action we saw with Veet, where he was able to cut back door. There's no need to try to attack in isolation here, and it ends up with him losing the ball. I can't even tell if Jeremy King got a hand on it or Dyson just lost it. Now, there are times too when I watch this Hawks team where I'm like, man, like the windows in the NBA, first off, they close so quickly, but also the playmaking from Trae Young is really a luxury because there are these windows that only he can access or process really quickly. And so we'll slow this one down because Dyson still gets this pass off, but it's not the best angle, right? Like if he keeps the ball in his right hand here, he might be able to bounce past this or even lob it, right? But because he crosses to his left, he misses this window. And even though he gets that pass through, it's still a beat too late. Like the way he would have been able to maintain this advantage is storing it here, right? Lob over the top, or even like a bounce pass with spin. That's a really, these are 2 advanced level passes. I'm not criticizing him as a passer in general. I'm just saying that it's possessions like these where it's like, that's a good read and it's the right read, but it's just not the most advantageous. It doesn't preserve that advantage from Onyeka because if you throw that as a lob or if you throw that here, even if it's that left hand bounce pass through that window, right? Like VJ has no intention of getting in the way there. And it's just that 1 extra second that allows all the Philly defenders to get back into the play. Hawks only had 0.6 seconds on the shot clock here. They're going to run that. I think they ran that same flat veer. It's hard to tell. Asa was just kind of standing statically in the corner, and Veet was clapping at him because I think they wanted that pin and screen for that corner 3. So Veet starts clapping. He's clapping hard, and Asa's like, "Oh wait, I was supposed to do something." And then they have to get it to Onyeka, who, to his credit, gets it on the rim. But that's just a grenade. The young guy's he's going to learn too. Just Dyson being Dyson. Not Philly won an offensive foul. I'm not mad at it. He kind of bowed him. Like he just extended. He kind of went, ah. But, sometimes you got to let someone know to get off you. I like that. Good energy. We're going to watch this grenade DHO against Philly. So this is Asa who's going to do this. So he's going to lift and come directly into this DHO. And then he's going to slip right out of it. And you're going to watch it. This is that same bounce pass I was talking about from Dyson. Luke's going to get this around the defense and kind of put some spin on it to get it right to Asa in his stride. And he finishes over and through Paul George. Now, we mentioned we watched one DHO, right? We can talk about some of the progressions that they go through when they run those dribble handoffs. Going to be the same thing. So early entry to the Asa, corner DHO. He's going to set it and slip immediately. Now Asa's going to catch it. He's going to survey the floor, see where the help is coming from, get it to Jalen Johnson. And because Luke Kennard is running through the different dunker spots here, he engages that defender from Quin and Grimes and makes this closeout longer to Jalen, which then makes this shot wide open for Regis Shea. It's just a value movement. I would have loved that. I mean, honestly, I don't really know if this would have been foul or not if he tried to screen McCain, but it's a wide open 3 for Zachary Regis Shea because of Asa Newell's short roll decision making, because of Luke Kennard's movement, all these different things working together. It's beautiful basketball. Like when it works, it works. It's really fun to watch. Now, I thought on this play, Jalen should have hit Asa. So 2-man game with Zach. They're going to flip it back. Zach's going to get it back to Jalen. Now, here comes Asa for that pick. When Asa sets this pick and he gets downhill, I can't tell if Jalen thought that he was going to roll because Asa hesitated a little bit and then he pops. When Jalen's feeling Quin Grimes and he feels Andre Drummond and he sees Jabari Walker there, I think this should have been a reverse pivot to get it back to Asa. He's still able to get a decent shot off just because he's 6'10", but I think there you got to get it to Asa Newell. Now, this is the one where Onyeka runs another pick and roll. It just doesn't have the same exact results, and some of that's the guy who's defending him, right? So, and also the situation, it clearly isn't as organized. So Jalen's just kind of going to ghost it, and now Onyeka has to dribble against a guard, and Quin Grimes just takes it away from him. You know, you give me your take, man. I'm not too mad at it. This is really good reaction timing from Zach. He kind of baited him into doing this. He breaks on it like a quarterback, and he attacks. I think resetting here is probably advisable. I'm not too mad at it. You still have to make that. I think I don't think that's a hard enough contest for me to say, hey, good defense, but I'm not too mad at it. Here's what I mentioned too, like Onyeka is also locking up against PG, which allows Dyson to get back to the play. Zach's going to push, and he pulled this, and this is a big time shot. He got pulled after this, and I know that a lot of fans were like, hey, why is he getting pulled out of the game? Like, he's having a good game. I don't think that Quin will be changing that until Zach shows more resilience as an offensive player. And especially when PG was already frying everyone, I think that's where Quin got to, like, I'd rather have Veet. And with the way Veet's playing, I don't have the biggest concern with that. I do think against bigger teams, you can't do that. And that doesn't mean playing Zach, but I just don't think you can go with Veet at the 3 against bigger teams. That doesn't mean that Zach has to be on the floor. It could be, you could go jumbo, whatever it may be. But yeah, I would just say just expect Zach to not close, honestly. Until I don't know what he would need to show the coaching staff, to be honest. But I think if it was me and I was trying to look at his roster, I'd say, hey, we need to be able to trust you as a ball handler. We need to be able to trust you to be able to execute more complicated schemes offensively and defensively. But I also do wonder, like, are we going to get to a point where he's just not getting enough reps in the clutch to be reliable in the clutch? I think that's a fair point to wonder. Because right now he's just not playing any clutch minutes. And when he does play, I don't see a massive difference, like in terms of how the Hawks play. But maybe when we get a bigger sample, we'll see. So this is stat. This is a baseline out of bound play. You're going to have Nikhil curl first, then Dyson, and then you're going to have Onyeka pop. And this is by design to try and get you can see that Nikhil comes to try to potentially screen Embiid as a distractor. Embiid bowls through Pete Krejci. That's a contested 3. Can you imagine the confidence that a coach has to have to drop a 3 for his center in a baseline out of bound with his team up 2 with 3 minutes to go? I think that really just speaks to how much growth that Onyeka has gotten to, or the point that he's gotten to as a shooter. I want to highlight the passing off of assignments here on this play. You've got Dyson who gets stuck on the screen a little bit. He's going to recover. Now the Hawks are going to X out, right? You got to X out. You got to get these open shooters. So here comes Nikhil. He beats the ball to Quin Grimes. Then Pete Krejci gets around Don Barlow. Then Onyeka's there to take the potential charge. And then they're able to rally, get that defensive rebound. The Hawks they love to run inverted pick and roll in the clutch. I've mentioned this. Not their best play. Unfortunately, they are scoring in terms of the games. Oh, geez, it's even worse than I thought. Through the games I have logged, the Hawks are scoring 0.57 points per possession on inverted pick and roll. Not great. It's 0.26 points less than expected, according to my tracking. And a lot of that's just because it isn't generating high-quality shots. It's a lot of middies. And, of course, those aren't going to be the Hawks' most proficient shots. Now, Jalen's still capable of creating something out of nothing on these plays. On times, he gets fouled a lot. Here, he's able to turn into a putback from Dyson. But I don't love this as, like, the go-to clutch play. I'll say across the league, teams are going to put the ball in their best players' hands, and a lot of times that looks like a pick and roll. It's not always the worst thing. I just think that Jalen's still limited as a half-court scorer, and he just doesn't have the counters or, But I guess, like, what's the alternative? To me, I'd rather play through Onyeka a little bit, have Nikhil initiate as the pick and roll ball handler, which they did do at points throughout this game as well. I think I'm cool on the inverted pick and roll, though. At least as, like, the go-to play. which it definitely feels like it is at this point. Now, I did highlight a lot of good Jalen defensive moments. This was not one of them, unfortunately. So on this play, unfortunately, it's tough to pass off assignments when you can't see where your help is coming from in terms of your teammates, right? The Hawks are going to commit two to the drive here by Joel Embiid, which means that Nikhil's going to next to Don Barlow, who's Jalen Johnson's man. That means that Dyson's going to pick up VJ Edgecombe, who's Nikhil's man. That leaves Jalen Johnson to pick up Paul George, who is Dyson Daniels' man. Now, when this happens, right, and this ball gets swung, you're going to see both V and Jalen Johnson run to Paul George. Now, this can be attributed to three different things. It could be a miscommunication, meaning no one said, "Oh, I got PG." It could be schematic, meaning that V is supposed to come from the far corner and Jalen is supposed to go to this close out. Now, this happens a lot for most NBA teams. They like to send the guy who helped on the closest sort of recovery or relocation, right? Like right now, Jalen Johnson is closer to Quin Grimes than he is to Paul George. So that means either Jalen didn't understand the assignment or V is being overly proactive, and not in a bad way, but just more so he's trying to cover for a slow rotation by Jalen, right? Either way, this comes down to Jalen and what the actual scheme is. I don't know what the scheme is. I don't know what they were told to do here, so I don't want to say that it's on anyone unilaterally, but clearly a miscommunication because you don't want two guys running to the ball. Although this happens in every NBA game, right? And so because this happens, when that ball gets swung to Quentin Grimes and Jalen is paying attention to where the ball is, right? He doesn't see V at all. He doesn't get his head around to see V, and he can't slow down before V already beat him to the spot. And so by the time Quentin Grimes gets the ball, he has time to take a rhythm dribble. He's checking the wind. He's pulling that shot up with no care in the world. And of course, he's going to make that. And then, this game is pretty goofy, man. I don't think the Hawks scored after this until Nikhil got fouled. There was an over and back that the NBA referee account came out and said, "Oh, it actually wasn't over and back, and we've ruled this in other games before." Either way, unfortunately, I don't know what it is about games against Philly, but the Hawks have gotten away with some stuff. Like Philly didn't get a timeout in that overtime game, so our double overtime game. Now, fourth consecutive triple-double for Jalen Johnson. He's one of the only players under 24 to do so. I do think that sometimes it can be the result of a system, but I have evolved in terms of my basketball philosophy to say that, even if it is him passing as a hub or the scheme is for him to get rebounds, there's still a lot of value in that because when Jalen Johnson gets a rebound, the Hawks are scoring more efficiently than they are when other people are getting rebounds, if that makes sense, right? Because, of course, you can push the pace. He's a better decision maker in the open court than most of the guys on the roster. So I like the fact that they get the ball in his hands as soon as possible. I like that they're involving him in every offensive action. I like that he's figuring out, the gives and the takes in the clutch offensive game. He's still relatively unpolished in the half court. And to still be putting up this level of production, even if some of it is definitely results of the system, it's incredibly amazing. The Hawks will have a game against Charlotte, who's been playing good basketball as of late. And they've got to see San Antonio, who, depending on the results of the Cup, we be coming off Cup championship or whatever they call it, in-season tournament winner, or a loss. And that game will certainly be interesting. And ideally, I think by the next week, we'll see if we get some more clarity on Trae Young's injury history. KP's out for the next 2 weeks with his illness. He did tell us at media day, or not media day. What game was that? It was whatever game, the home game before this one. I'm sorry, I'm losing track. But he told us at media availability that he felt like he had this particular issue under control. It's not the same thing that was plaguing him against Boston. And so I don't know if, and I really do hope it's not further complications from POTS or another infection as a result of having POTS. But we were at least told that he had cleared that up. So either he had another flare up, whatever it may be, but he hasn't played in 8 of the last 9 games or something like that. And I still think I would always take that gamble with KP. It was Terrence Mann, Niang, in a first that ended up being a late first. But I do think, unfortunately, this team really doesn't need him a lot. He's top 10 in EPM. He has the biggest half-court influence of anyone on the roster. He's the go-to, hey, we need a bucket guy. And that would have been true even if Trae Young was healthy. So they absolutely need him. And hopefully he really gets healthy, not just for his sake, but for the Hawks' sake, because they made this investment in him. And at the very least, he's still going to be an expiring And so it's a it's a 30 million TPE, or it's someone that you can roll into a trade with a contender or even a tanking team who just kind of needs salary on their books. So the Hawks still have a lot of options here. I don't think it's a disaster. I don't think Onti should be lambasted or berated for making this trade. I think it makes a lot of sense to me now. It made a lot of sense to me then, and it makes a lot of sense to me now, even with him dealing with this illness. I do wonder how much Boston knew about this particular illness, though. And I don't know how this got through the physical. The reporting was that his team was able to figure out a fix or like something that helped during Eurobasket. So hopefully he can find that, because I have really enjoyed seeing KP in a Hawks jersey. It's been really interesting. He's unlocked a lot for the playbook. What he does on his post-ups is huge for this offense. So hopefully we get that wrinkle back. Hopefully the Hawks will get Trae Young back soon as well. And yeah, see y'all in the next one. Y'all have a good day.